This is the Horse Radio Network.
This is episode 501 of the Dressage Radio Show, official podcast of the United States Dressage Federation on the Horse Radio Network, brought to you by Kentucky Performance Products and TotalSaddleFit.com. On tonight's USDF episode, Patty Mayer is going to help Reese and I recap the most recent USDF FEI Trainers Conference. After that, Nicole Harrington will join us to talk about the challenges of training PRE horses. And for our trainer tip, we will continue talking about the training pyramid.
This is Reese Koffler-Stanfield from Wellington, Florida.
And this is Philip Parks from Rockwood, Ontario, and you're listening to the Dressage Radio Show.
Hi there, Phil. How are you tonight?
Hi, Reese. I'm actually doing really well. The cold weather is finally broken, and I've got to do some serious riding today.
I know. Yeah, your horses have really had a little bit of time off, which is a
break.
Good thing.
It's not a terrible thing, right? But
No.
They are a little spirited when you go to get back on them. A little bit of lunging, a little bit of safe riding today. Not too much actual drilling exercises or anything like that. We're just a kind of a hang-on day.
A hang-on day. Well, the thing is, I typically give my horses a little break in July, and It is way hotter. So it's significantly easier.
They don't get too pent up and excited. They can still do your turnout and all of that. Well,
yeah, exactly.
It's a challenge to do turnout in icy, super cold weather and stuff like that. So they get really kind of extra jazzy. I don't know, more expression in their gaits. All that great stuff that we talk about.
Yes, we can really put icing on the cake, or we can just say they're a bit crazy and pent up. And so I think everyone up north is feeling your pain. So we will continue to. Fingers crossed that it stays warm so that you guys, live for another day for sure. So, yeah. But, things have been full steam ahead. It is actually 5-star week here in Wellington. So lots of fun things going on and people in town and events. And it's a really fun week. So it's fun to be here. And I hope to scoot off to see the 5-star Grand Prix. That's on Thursday. And also the Isabelle Vert Symposium is Thursday evening. So we're actually recording a little early this week because we'll be at that event. So we will definitely recap it. For sure.
Fantastic. Sounds exciting. Sounds like I got to take a quick trip down to Florida this week.
Well, Phil, you always have a place to stay. Travis and I have an extra room, so we love it, and we love when you come to visit. So anytime. But we have a great show today to get it started. Patty Mayer is going to come on right after this commercial break and talk to us about the USDF Trainers Conference that happened last weekend.
Founded in 1973, the United States Dressage Federation has become the largest organization to represent a single Olympic equestrian discipline. At nearly 30,000 members strong, USDF is your connection to dressage education, competition, and achievement. Visit USDF.org to learn more about USDF education, competition and award programs, and to shop our online store. Again, that's USDF.org, your online destination for dressage.
Well, today I am so excited to have my dear friend and also FEI high performance rider, Patty Mayer, on the line. Patty, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me back.
Well, we are so excited. And you were here last week, which was such a fun time for me. You joined us for the USEF and USDF Trainers Conference at Marianne McPhail's beautiful Hyde Meadow Farm. And there were quite a few FEI trainers that were in town. So you're here to kind of recap the whole experience. And I think it was overall a quite good one for us. And we had the 4 trainers for the USEF that were here. So Patty, I'll kind of let you take it away.
Okay. So first of all, it was lovely, lovely. I flew to Florida just to go to this conference because, happily, because I live in California, I'm privileged to ride with Christine Troward quite regularly and with Charlotte Bradal on occasion, and Charlotte's a good friend. So it was fun to see people I know quite well. I've clinicked with George before, so I know him more of, a bit, and had always found him to be an extraordinary instructor. And of course, Debbie is spectacular. So I really wanted to see our 4 team essentially our 4 team coaches, teach together, interact together, and show us how it's done at a very, very elite level. So to me, that was worth lots of hours on airplanes and much lack of sleep. So, and of course, it was super fun to sit next to you.
Yeah, I know.
So
We had a
there
great
you
time.
go. Yeah, we did. So I guess that we should start where they started, which was
with
they
George and the young
they
riders.
had which is young riders. So they did an interesting format, which I kind of liked, which is they started with young riders, and George spoke in a super interesting way about the difference between training a young rider and training a horse as an instructor. Because remember, this is an instructors conference. And what he was saying was you really need to teach a rider, yes, seat, but also feel. And I just thought he gave some incredible exercises for that, and also a really good explanation of how you can teach people to listen to their own seat and bodies and listen to the horse's body. Mm-hmm. And so again, you and I were talking a little bit before the show, and one of the exercises that I think both you and I thought was just phenomenal is so simple, which was get into a 20-meter circle. There are 4 points of the circle, right? Side, side, over center line, over center line. So you can sort of think of the circle as, a square, but not really. But you need to hit those points in order to keep your circle 20 meters. What he was doing, and I do that all the time, and, as an instructor, I will, put out cones. I'll make sure people ride through them.
Yeah.
He did this thing, and obviously he had a very good young rider to work with. But or junior or whatever she is. Mm-hmm. But junior, I think she's just turning 15.
Yeah,
and on
young.
A beautiful horse. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But he had her, and I think it was genius, he had her count the strides on the quarters of the circle. Mm-hmm. So if you were doing a square, right, you'd cross the center line, count whatever it was, 5 strides, 6 strides, and then you hit the rail, and then with luck you're doing the same 5 or 6 strides, and you're doing the same 5 or 6 strides. The concept being a few things. One is, well, gosh, you should be riding the same rhythm all the way around. And a good way to check that is to make sure that you're getting the same strides on each quarter, on each fourth of that circle. But also to have the rider feel the rhythm of the trot by counting. And I remember doing that as a hunt seat rider, right? As you would come towards a fence, as you round the corner, your instructor would say, I need you to start counting out loud when you're 5 strides away. I need you to start counting out loud when you're 7 strides away, when you're 6 strides away, when you're 2 strides away. I have forgotten to do that as a dressage instructor, and that's silly of me.
Me too.
And George just reminded me that it's important. It's easy. It's not rocket science. No one has to be some great rider to accomplish that, but it will sure make them a better rider. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I love that. Super simple, super, again, this was a seminar to instruct instructors. And I just thought that was such a good take home exercise that you can do. I'm a rider. Like, I need to do that myself to make sure that I'm not hurrying on one side and having too short a stride on another. Mm-hmm. But also, I don't teach lots of kids. Sadly, I teach a couple of young adults. I mainly teach young professionals, and so I tend. But again, that's silly. Why am I not teaching somebody that when so they're riding a Grand Prix horse? Who cares? Like, you need to know how to do stuff like that.
Yeah, no, you do, and I thought that was so good. And with this young rider, it took her a couple times to sort of get in the groove of counting the strides. But once she did, you could see how her body adjusted, how, the tempo adjusted. So many good things happened as she was more in rhythm, which obviously we know that rhythm is the base of the scale of training. So I thought that was fantastic with her. And another thing was this horse that this rider was riding was incredibly appropriate, but he had some issues in the walk. And they kind of talked about that, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah.
they talked about, okay, he had some rhythm issues in the walk, but he was so good at everything else. Changes,
Right.
lateral work, and that he was teaching her these things that, okay, he had a little issue in the walk, but for what this horse was doing for this young lady, you could look past that, which I thought was actually a good thing.
Yeah, super soft, lovely in the contact. The young woman whose name is, her name is Tori, was a lovely rider with, darn her, young, tall, and slender. So I hate her immediately, even though she's 15. So I probably shouldn't. But just, lovely, soft picture. And she's going to learn to be a lovely, soft, correct rider because of this horse. Here's one other thing that they did. We'll talk about some other exercises in a second, but one thing that I thought was interesting as we're talking about the walk is that they had, on the second day, they did, a bunch of walk canter transitions to try to really kind of make those prompt and correct. And at one point, the horse got just like this tiny bit frustrated. I mean, not a bad boy at all, and she's a lovely rider. And the second that happened, George was like, and we're done. And we're done. The horse is getting a little frustrated. No reason to, there's no reason to drill a horse on something that he's starting to get a little emotional about. Move on to the next thing. It's totally fine. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I ride a squillion young horses, even though I'm an old chick. I do not let them get frustrated. The second I start feeling like, oh, you know what, I overfaced them a little bit. And I'll even do this with my Grand Prix horses. Oh, you know what, I've gone a bridge too far here. I'm heading towards a bridge too far.
Mm-hmm.
You back off. The concept is we're making happy athletes, right? That we're not torturing them.
Right.
So, I loved that. I mean, I just think George is great. I think he's a great horseman. And I just thought he had that absolute timing to go, okay, this is, we've gotten a little emotional. The horse has gotten a little emotional. The rider's not doing anything wrong. We'll do it again tomorrow. We'll leave it to the next time. It's something to think about for the future. Move on. I love that. So I think the other thing we were talking about was he gave some really good thoughts and instructions about where your body is, what you as a rider feel when the horse's hind leg is on the ground. And again, I remember learning this stuff when I was sat on a lunge line as a kid. And even having gone through the instructor certification process and learning how to lunge riders on horses, we dealt with it more, and I tend to deal with it more as a seat issue. Are you sitting up straight? Are you balanced? Blah, blah, blah. And less as a think about the timing of your aids issue.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I just thought he gave really good instruction about, as you're feeling your knee goes down, that's when you're going to ask at the trot. As you feel like your hip comes forward, that's when you're going to ask at the canter. And I hope I'm not getting this wrong, because I have to sit on a horse and remember if that's, yes, I think that's right.
No, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And again, that's something that's, I'm going to be 60 this year. I've been riding seriously under instruction for 51 years. That's part of my body, I hope, and part of my intuition by now.
Mm-hmm.
It was awesome to hear it articulated. It was awesome because, people say it's so hard to teach feel. He was teaching feel.
He was, yeah.
I loved it. I loved the whole thing.
Yeah.
And I thought, both days, I thought he did just, as he said, he's a lovely man. He's articulated, good horseman, all of those things.
And great with young riders. And he's the young rider coach, right? I mean, that's his job.
Yeah.
That's what he's doing. And so he really did give us a good feel of sort of how he teaches young riders and how he is going to move them up and sort of into the developing ranks, which would be with Charlotte Bredal. But they ended up they did the young riders and the young horses in the morning. So we kind of moved to Christine Traurig with the young horses.
Right.
So,
and I'm just going to interrupt you just to remind that the other thing that George, he worked with this 15-year-old first and then with a junior first and then a young rider. And he did quite different things.
Yes.
Again, because of this process. Sorry, go on. I'm stopping interrupting.
No, you're right. Yeah, absolutely. So he showed the young riders, which was great. And so then we sort of moved into the young horses. So talk to us a little bit about Christine and what we saw with the two horses Christine had.
Well, I've been Christine's been a friend of mine for, I don't know, since 1990. I don't even want to know. And I've been riding with her in clinics pretty regularly, like once a month since, I don't know, 2004 maybe. So for quite some time. So this is stuff that I hear, shouted at me.
Which is all good.
Just saying.
Yep.
With encouragement.
Yes, exactly.
And, sometimes derision, but whatever.
Christine's hard. She's not an easy instructor, but she is quick to reward the horses, and she always says good job. And so
yes, she's quick to reward the riders too.
Which was cool.
Yeah. And I agree with you. She's funny. I keep thinking I should send her to Vegas. Like the comedy stylings of Christine Troward, she says the funniest things that make you remember stuff. She did it less at this because I think, it's a more of a public forum, but she is a funny woman. And in a really smart, good way. Anyway, so obviously she had beautiful, beautiful horses to work with, and great riders. So, but one of the things that she does that she, clearly cares deeply about is she is all about correct. Everything needs to be from the hind leg, over the back, into the bit. And she is insistent that each part of your body as a rider, and I think she articulates this well, way better than I am about to. Each part of your body as a rider has a use. So there is a function to your outside leg. There's a function to your inside leg. There's a function to your left rein. There's a function to your right rein. There's a function to each seat bone. And she wants to make sure that whether that function is, making sure that the hind leg doesn't fall out in a shoulder in, or in a circle, or whatever, that the function is being maintained. And I love that because she teaches our great young horse riders to ride our great young horses. And that is, the future of our sport, right? Unless we all have squillions of dollars and want to go, off and buy, Grand Prix horse from Europe. That, and not only does that not happen for most people, in fact, if you look at it statistically, almost everyone on our team, almost always, has trained their own horse up. And that's what Christine is there to do, to teach people to train their horses correctly, classically, kindly, gently up the levels. Yeah. And I think she's extraordinary at that. She also, sits on a horse like it's, we didn't get to see her ride, but she has this kind of crazy good seat. There's a crazy good rider with those long legs and short upper body. And just kind of perfect position. But so she kind of wraps herself around horses. Even for those of us who are less physically privileged, I would say about myself, maybe, I don't know, 6-7 inches shorter with shorter, squattier legs and thicker thighs. She can teach you to do that. And at least she sure gives it a shot to teaching me to do it. So, I just find her extraordinary. It was also, obviously as instructors, we don't have the privilege of instructing some of the great riders in the country who are also some of the great riders in the world. And I would say Michael Bragdell is, among those. Michael Bragdell is, an amazingly good rider physically. I've only seen him ride once before because I'm a West Coaster. But, he's tall, he's slender. His joints look like they are, have jello in them or something. He just moves with the horse in this lovely way, and he seems like a super soft rider from the couple of times I've seen him. And of course, he is riding extraordinary horses. So as an instructor, us normal human beings don't get to teach someone of that caliber on horses of that caliber. And yet what I thought Christine did super well was analogize it to the more normal. That's not to say an unsound horse or a horse, who's a little choppy horse, but a normal, everyday dressage horse, and how you make those horses better and softer and more connected, and how dressage makes them beautiful. even though what she's, her example to do that was a horse and rider that, I could never dream to be, and that most of us will never dream to teach.
And Michael is so experienced, right? That's also a huge thing. Like, he's incredibly experienced training these horses, which is cool because, he can also do what she's saying. He can show us kind of how it's done, which is really cool. But I also felt like Christine is literally the German training manual in a human form, which is, she just is able to do that, which is amazing. So that was pretty cool. So if you ever get a chance
her mentor is Jo Hinneman, and she rode with him for years at his facility, and she brings that with her, as well as, growing up in the German system.
So, Patty, after lunch, we came back and we started to sort of work with the developing horses with Charlotte Bredal. Can you tell us a little bit about her system and what she was doing during her time?
Well, Charlotte is, one of the loveliest human beings on the planet, and is a super interesting rider and trainer. As she said to us at the kind of evening thing, she started in Denmark training trotting horses, like standard. I think it sounded like standard driving horses, like race driving horses. So she has a kind of interesting view, which is a little less German system trained, but super horsemanlike, and again, super gentle and kind. She has amazing ways of teaching pirouettes, and did some of that. She's really good at kind of analyzing whether a horse is falling out or falling in. She'll do things like, a shoulder in, a shoulder four. She'll move them into a little bit of the haunches in. She's going to make sure that the horse is carrying and bending and turning. And she has a squillion ways of addressing that, of which she certainly did some at this. And she does that nice thing that I love when a trainer does, which she does come into the arena with you, and she did this, and she'll have somebody do a canter pirouette essentially around her big toe, which is, I absolutely do that with my students when I know the horses super well. I'm not sure I would do that at a public clinic with a horse, because you never know.
Yeah, I know. It's true.
But by doing that, by standing right there, she can address where the rider is sitting. She can address the hind leg. She can address things super quickly and super quietly to the rider. And I just thought that was really interesting. And, again, she's going to kind of, I wish she'd work piaffe passage, because I know how she does that at home, and I think she's super good at it. She talked something about that in the evening, which is that somebody had asked, do you teach piaffe passage under saddle, or do you teach it in long lines? And she was the one who really felt like that she really teaches it in long lines, because she is super, super good at long lines. And that's her comfort, and that's the way she does it. And I've seen her do it, and she's really good. This other thing she did, I don't know if she did it at this event, I don't think I saw it, is she will have you post the passage and to some extent the piaffe too. So she really thinks about piaffe and passage as being trot, and insists that you keep it as a trotting, a sense of trotting in them. And by posting it, she gets their backs nice. And I just think that works, for a lot of horses, that works super, super well. And, she also, as you know, Charlotte is an FEI judge. And so she's very good at looking at things from a judge's perspective, and did spend a fair amount of time talking about accuracy.
Yes.
And I like that. I like that she has a perspective that goes from training to riding to teaching to judging. And I think that's incredibly valuable, both for the U.S., and I think it was valuable for the people watching, for the instructors watching this.
Absolutely. I would agree. And our final instructor was Debbie McDonald. So tell us a little bit about what you saw from Debbie.
Well, Debbie is obviously, extraordinary and very, very soft in the way she does things too. The thing that was interesting, she had two people ride with her. She had Kerrigan Gulch, and Kerrigan actually normally rides with Charlotte. Mm-hmm. And she had Chris Hickey, who, as far as I know, normally rides with himself. And, wow, again, this goes back to the choice of horses and riders for these things. It is a privilege to watch Chris ride an amazing horse. It is a privilege to watch Kerrigan ride. These people ride, better than, most of us can dream of, and are on horses that are better than most of us can dream of. Debbie, let's talk about a little bit more about how Debbie worked with Kerrigan, and then we'll talk about Chris. Kerrigan is on a very strong Andalusian stallion, and in general, she rides for an Andalusian farm, which is amazing. Amazing horses that she has, and they have, just in general, they have amazing horses. And what Debbie was working on was how to take those horses from, that's pretty darn good, to wow. In other words, from essentially the 7 to 7.5, which Kerrigan just can clock in, that the rest of us can't, to an 8, an 8.5, where's the 9, where's the higher than a 9. Mm-hmm. And that was lovely to watch. So they were working in a very detailed, tiny way on where you add expression and where you get a little more conservative. Mm-hmm. And, so that I liked a lot. The other thing I liked is that, and I ride lots of Andalusians, so I have this issue too, and I watched, and I have a couple of Grand Prix horses. You get to this point, especially with the Andalusians and the ones who like Piaffe, wherever you go to do it downward, you do them through half steps. Mm-hmm. And I think Debbie was good about not stopping that, but about saying, well, wait, that's not the only way you should do it. Yes, you should get them to sit, but it doesn't need to be through Piaffe or through half steps every time. It can be softer. It can be more direct. As amazing as this horse was. So I thought that was really good. Yeah. And then, I would say, to me, it was, it's obviously lovely to watch Chris ride, and he was riding this beautiful horse. That was interesting too, because I would say it was more interesting to watch just as gosh, isn't this beautiful to watch? Yes. And Debbie just made these little tiny detailed changes. It was, I'm almost going to say, if I were the USDF people, I would not choose horses that were that good with riders who are that good. Because to some extent, Chris is, Chris can teach himself, right? Chris is off doing what Chris does and making everything a little better and hitting the shoulder 4 before you could ever say, please, you should do a shoulder 4 here, right? Mm-hmm. And because it's a seminar to teach instructors to instruct, when you have a rider as good as he is, who's off doing their own thing, and it's a perfect thing, there's nothing to really say about the thing, it doesn't help me as much as an instructor. Do you know what I mean?
Sure.
So
sure.
That would be my that would be my kind of concept. So I don't know. I just thought it was lovely. And I just thought, it was beautiful. They worked well together. The horse is spectacular. Chris is an amazing rider. I kind of want to see something that you can work on where the rider hasn't already figured out the problem before the instructor can say it.
Well, and I think that's Debbie's role, right? Debbie's the team coach, and by the time you get to be a team coach, and Chris's horse that he was riding, to be perfectly honest, is, I'm sure that's what they're looking. The horse has done a few Grand Prix, so they're talking about making that horse better. And I think that's sort of what Debbie's role is to come in and make horses better with their current riders. And I think that's what they showed us. And that's for sure. So cool to watch. That was fun to say, okay, that's how we're putting the icing on the cake with this horse.
Right.
And that was what Debbie was doing. And I think, as you sat there and we sat there and we saw all four coaches, you saw why these people have the jobs that they have, because each one of them was really good in their particular roles. So that was really cool to see.
Yeah, so. I agree. And the other thing that I liked about all of them and loved about Debbie is that, again, she found that moment to say reward.
Yes.
All of them. And, want you to pat your horse. All of them want you to walk and give a reward. She said once to Chris, don't get greedy. That's enough steps. That's fine. Mm-hmm. And again, I totally get that, because once you get into the Piaffe, you're thinking, well, this is going very well until it isn't. And it's way better to think this is going very well. I should get out of that now.
Right. Which was really cool to see, So I thought that was all really fun to see and amazing from that perspective. And so I think it was just overall just a really cool way to see the instructors. And I would absolutely recommend, if you have a chance, to go see them again. And I thought it was a great format this year that sort of kept your attention, instead of one instructor, giving their whole philosophy, which can be interesting and cannot be. Phil and I specifically have been to some where you're like, oh my goodness, but that it was fantastic. So
I think our four coaches are, I think we have this amazing privilege right now. Mm-hmm. And, Robert obviously just retired, but, when there were the five of them, also an amazing privilege. To have this group of Americans who are incredibly dedicated to a system that is totally about excellence, but also totally about a happy horse.
Right. Well, Patty, thank you so much for coming on and summarizing the USDF/USDF FEI Trainers Conference. It was a really good one this year, and it was fun to have your company. So, Patty, could you give us your contact information about your farm? And I will say, Patty's got some fantastic sales horses for sale right now, so she's a great one to touch base with. So
thank you for the plug.
No problem.
I'm in California. I'm just north of Los Angeles, and my email is bailiwickhouse@gmail.com, which I will spell BAILIWICKHOUSE@gmail.com. And I do have some lovely horses for sale at the moment. So there you go.
Fantastic. Thanks, Patty, for coming on the show. You're an old pro now.
Thank you. Okay, bye now.
Well, that was a fun interview with Patty Mayer. Great to always have her on the show. And right after this commercial break from Kentucky Performance Products, we're going to come back with Nicole Harrington, FEI trainer.
The sun is just peeking above the tree line as you walk into the barn. You grab your horse's halter off the hook and head out to the field. The dew shimmers in the sun as you walk across the damp grass. You call his name and his head comes up as he walks toward you, looking for the apple in your pocket. You take your time grooming, enjoying the peace and quiet in the empty barn. A refreshing breeze greets you as you start down the tree-lined path. Your horse ambles along on a loose rein as you both enjoy a relaxing ride. The feeling you get on an early morning hack is why we do what we do at Kentucky Performance Products. This feeling is brought to you by Microphase. Fill the nutritional gaps in your horse's diet. Microphase Vitamin and Mineral Supplement is a low-calorie way to provide your horse with the vitamins and minerals missing from their diet. The horse that matters to you matters to us.
Well, tonight it is our pleasure to have Nicole Harrington, the owner and rider of Harrington Dressage in Batavia, Ohio. She's an FEI rider and trainer and also a friend of mine. Nicole, welcome to the show.
Hi.
We're so happy to have you because we have been asked a listener question. And as everybody on the show knows, we try, if we don't have the answer to the particular questions we get the expert that knows. And one of the questions that I shout out to Olivia, I saw Olivia at the trainers conference and she has a Lusitano and she asked me if we could find a trainer that specializes and or has a lot of experiences with Lusitanos and Andalusians on some challenges challenges that you face with that particular breed. And Nicole just rode down here on PRE night, and I thought she'd be the perfect person. So Nicole, can you start us off and just some challenges you have with training this particular breed of horses?
Yeah, absolutely. They're wonderful horses, really good for amateurs. They're a little easier to sit at times, but they can be a little bit tricky to get through their backs and to really get them to work from behind. They tend to want to keep their neck in a high position, and it a lot of times tends to block them through the back. So that's where they can kind of be tricky. You kind of have to lower their necks a little bit more than normal, and just really get them to stretch out to the bit so they really start to loosen up their back and work their hind legs.
Yeah, and I love that analogy. I mean, they really are, a lot of amateurs pick this particular breed. So what would you say sort of, you did say easy to sit and that type of thing, but what are some other really good traits about this breed that you found with training them?
Yeah, they really have a wonderful temperament, and they tend to really bond with their person. And that's, again, why a lot of amateurs love them, because they look for that attention from that person, and they really will give you their all when you create a bond with them. They're truly wonderful horses that way. But, they're also being bred that they have some really nice gaits and can be competitive professional open horses now.
Yeah, fantastic. I was going to ask you today, I was really looking forward to having you on because I'm involved in coaching a PRE. And I think in general, with the ones I've experienced, is that they have a little bit of a tougher time learning to lengthen their strides. For somebody who wants to, show one of these horses and train their own to first level and beyond, what are some ideas, exercises, and things that can really help to teach these horses to do that, to lengthen their strides and not just get faster and more choppy in their trot?
The biggest trickiness with them, again, is to get them through their back, because if you don't get them like a little bit lower in the front and really get them to release through that neck and that back, they will just kind of get shorter and quicker in the front end when you ask them to lengthen their stride. As you get the back more and really get their hind legs, that's when they'll start to actually open up their shoulder and take that longer stride versus getting shorter and quicker.
Fantastic. And so, again, they're known for piaffe and passage. So tell us some, tricks of the trade there to utilize that.
My young horses, I start them in the piaffe and passage when they're really young. They're about 4 or 5 years old in hand, because also the passage on these horses will help you create your collected trot that they might not naturally have the cadence, that a warm blood has. And then also this sitting in the piaffe helps them teach them to use their hind legs for your extended work, like your extended trot and gait.
Fantastic. So you do teach them early. You kind of utilize that skill in training them. I
utilize what they're good at to help kind of fix the weaknesses in them.
Sure. And that makes sense. I have a PRE that I train, and it's been amazing now that he's strong enough to really use the half steps. And so, I wouldn't even call it piaffe yet, but the idea of the half steps, it has made all the difference because it's actually strengthened his back, and with the ability to sort of hold himself up and pick his abs up and put his hind legs under, it has helped his extensions. They are a lot more expressive and made a big difference for him as we've gone through the training. And what about the flying changes? I mean, have you found them to be kind of trickier? Because you also train warm bloods. You train all types of horses. Mm-hmm. Have you found the changes to be a particular challenge?
The changes can, again, be a little bit tricky when you first start them on these horses. They'll want to get a little bit quicker in the front and sometimes not use the hind legs, which makes them a tendency to be late behind. So, again, getting them loose in the neck and loose in the back and really teaching them to start from the hind leg and always think from the hind leg will fix that problem. And then once you get over that hump, they can have really super nice changes, and usually can go all the way to Grand Prix because the piaffe and passage is not hard for them.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe you can give us the exercise, which everybody has a little bit of a personal way to teach flying changes. How do you do it? You coming across the diagonal, for instance, or give us your exercises.
On the PREs, actually, I like to put them on a 20-meter circle, and a lot of times I'll change true canter to counter canter with them on the 20-meter circle, because I can almost teach them to be a little bit early behind. It teaches them to think more from the hind leg and not just want to jump from the front. But it kind of depends if it's really a horse-by-horse basis. But with the PREs, I do a lot on the 20-meter circle. And then once the changes are confirmed, I'll start on the diagonal or on the long side.
And I think lastly, is there anything in the lateral work in which you pay particular attention to or watch out for?
The lateral work is usually something that's pretty easy for them. If they're super short in the back, sometimes bending in the half passes is a little harder. But I do a lot with leg yielding across the diagonal and turn on the forehand, which really helps to loosen up their hips and to keep them moving left and right off my legs.
Yeah,
and
fantastic.
that helps them tremendously, because again, they want to hold that tension there behind the saddle through their backs.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of been, I think Philip and I could for sure kind of echo that. These horses, the tension that they have in their backs and their necks is a bit different than a warm blood.
Yeah.
And so, you do have to let the steam out of the pot sometimes with these horses. If you sort of bottle them up, this is my, again, I'm not incredibly experienced, but I have trained one now quite for 4 or 5 years. And that's a big thing. And you can feel him. When he is tight in his back, you're not getting very far. You got to let the tension out, and then you can go from there. So that's definitely been something that has been different. But, they are wonderful horses. I think Philip and I would second that, and have been fun to figure out different ways. Not that they're training differently than warm bloods, but there are some things that you can highlight maybe differently and that kind of thing. And they're quite fun.
In my experience too, they are a little slightly different than the warm blood, because with these guys too, actually slowing them down just a little bit in the gaits helps them to get a little quicker behind. Mm-hmm. Whereas, sometimes with warm blood, you'll want to ride them a little more forward, you make them a little more quick. But these guys, actually slowing them down, they tend to create more cadence and actually get a little quicker behind. And that's when you can really get their backs to relax more by just taking just a little bit off of them.
Yeah, no, that makes sense, because they get going really quickly and then the legs are everywhere. Yep. And you're like, oh gosh, slow down. So that makes sense, slowing the feet a little bit. And we always say slow feet, thinking mind. So it makes sense. Well, Nicole, thank you so much for coming on and giving us some insight for Olivia and answering her question. How can our listeners find more information about you online?
My website is harringtondressage.com, and also on Facebook under Harrington Dressage as well.
Fantastic. Well, thanks so much, and we look forward to seeing you in the Grand Prix ring with your big boy soon.
Thanks.
Well, Phil, we have an awesome Total Saddle Fit tip of the week coming up, but I got my new stirrups from Justin. I'm so much for
you're
leathers.
Lucky. You get them quicker in America than
I do. I get them much quicker than you.
Here, but
I did.
I'm sure mine are on my way.
They are on the way. Justin's so fantastic about helping us get what we need. And these stirrup leathers are really cool. They're a little bit wider. So, Phil, you can give us the description, and I'll tell you my feel after you tell us.
Okay. This wide body design brings an incredible stability to your leg. It also makes a smoother transition from the flap to your leg and back again, so that you don't feel like you're riding with a thick leather under your leg. And the portion of the leather that wraps around the stirrup bar are thin calfskin wrapped in webbing to make minimal bulk under your leg. They are guaranteed to improve your ride, or they're going to pay shipping both ways. So that's a fantastic thing about the Total Saddle Fit products is, if you don't like them, they're going to take them back, give you your money, and then a little bit more on top to pay for the shipping.
Yeah.
Nothing to lose.
Yeah. And Justin at TotalSaddleFit.com is great. But I will tell you, so I rode in them for the first time today, and my first general impression, I love them. I really, really love them. They were fantastic. My leg was absolutely quieter in the stirrups than they were in my regular ones. So I rode Mikey, follow me in the stirrups. And then I went and rode Elandcourt in his regular stirrups, like regular. I didn't switch the stirrups. And I will tell you, my leg was much quieter on my first horse. And I was really impressed, actually. I thought, oh, I may have to move these to both stirrups, actually, to both saddles, because they have different saddles. And I was really impressed. General impression from today, literally just got off and just got home here to do the show, but really impressed, actually, on them. So Phil, we'll keep you in the saga of the newest stirrup leathers, but 2 thumbs up so far. Really excited about that. So that was cool. Yeah.
Good to hear.
Yeah.
This week's dressage training tip is brought to you by Total Saddle Fit, home of the shoulder relief girth at TotalSaddleFit.com.
Well, as promised, last week we started the pyramid of training. This was actually a listener question, and it's actually a pretty long topic, so we broke it into 2 different weeks.
Split it into 2, yeah.
To 2 tips, because the pyramid of training obviously is sort of our roadmap to training the horses. So if you missed the discussion of rhythm, suppleness, and contact, we discussed that last week, and a little bit about what they changed on the pyramid of training, because there was an update that came out. So it was a great listener question, and as always, we love them. So we're going to kind of start midway, and again, go back and listen to last week's if you need the first part. But we're going to start with impulsion, and the pyramid says engagement and the desire to go forward. So that is actually a little bit different wording that was before. So engagement is the term is used to describe the transmission of an eager, energetic, and controlled thrust generated from the hindquarters into an athletic movement of the horse. So Phil, do you want to jump in there?
Yeah, I always think about this step as being kind of a push power thing. It takes a while to develop this, and all the exercises that you're doing with your horse to complete the training tests, all the way up through 4th, all the way to Grand Prix, basically 3rd level, 4th level, Grand Prix, St. George, is developing impulsion. So there's not one specific exercise that you should be thinking about impulsion. You should be thinking about it throughout your whole ride, through your whole training of the horse to develop their push power and their hind end muscles, and looking at the hind leg when you're watching videos of yourself ride. You want to see more articulation in the joints of the hind leg to be able to know that this is working, generating more air time. These are the words that I think of when I'm thinking of impulsion.
Yeah, no, I think it's great. And I mean, I do like in the desire to go forward, because we talk a lot about horses being in front of the leg and engagement. And I think that idea of the desire to go forward sort of does sum up impulsion a little bit better.
Yeah, but you gotta pay attention that you're not running forward or
right.
Making a quicker tempo. This is in the German word they use the word Schwung, which is sort of describes the idea that you're swinging along in not a faster way. A lot of people are trying to generate impulsion, but the horses very easily will get very fast and more on the forehand, and this is not what you want to be envisioning when you're training and when you're riding.
Right, exactly. Well, fantastic. Well, so the next one is straightness, improved alignment, and equal lateral suppleness on both reins. So again, the language has changed a little bit, but so again, improved alignment and equal lateral suppleness on both reins. So the horse is said to be straight when the footfall of the forehand and the hindquarters are appropriately aligned on straight and curved lines, when his longitudinal axis is in line with the straight or curved track on which he is ridden. So I think that also sums that up a little bit. I think straightness is, again, you have to think of the horse's body and how horses are connected and how horses travel because it used to say the improved alignment, right? Because horses want to travel. Horses are wider behind than they are in front. So obviously they want to travel a little bit wider behind. So again, the alignment, I think, is a really helpful visual for that. What do you think, Phil?
Yeah, I mean, I think all of your lateral work is directed towards being able to make the horse straight. And by that, I mean that if you can put the shoulder to the inside and keep the hind leg along the wall, then you're able to use that exercise to get a desired type of alignment. And when you want to, bring the hind leg in and leave the shoulder on the track, you're working on really being able to decide where the horse should be and then putting them there. So they have to be, really supple to be able to do that. And then now you're using these lateral tools to make the horse straight. And so what we see a lot is horses that are really good at shoulder in one way and really good at travers the other way. So you've got to be working your horse and using exercises to make them equally good at shoulder in on both sides and equally good at travers on both sides. Mm-hmm. Then you have the beginnings to be able to add impulsion through the proper alignment or through a desired alignment. Every horse is a little bit different, and they like to travel just slightly travers to one way, and so you've got to make them straighter, add impulsion, and now you can create the last step, the top of the pyramid, collection.
Right.
This is what it's all about.
So collection, balance and lightness of the forehand from increased engagement.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think this is all about just sort of like being aware of where the horse's footfalls are, mm-hmm. and changing it if it does need changing, and then adding energy to be able to create a more beautiful gait, whether it's walk, trot, or canter. Mm-hmm. And I think that's kind of the name of the game, to use exercises and to be able to use knowledge and all of the great dressage stuff. The pinnacle here, collection, is like your horse is going to become more beautiful and more, we talk about being on the aids, more easily being able to move the horse's next footfall by centimeters or inches, depending what country you're in.
Depending on what country.
But being just really, being really aware and really in control, and having that horse as, your very willing, very strong, powerful, supple partner.
Mm-hmm. Well, and really, when you start talking about collection, if all of the pyramid of training, right, if all of those steps happen, shifting the horse onto the hind legs should theoretically have already happened, right? And the horse should already be able to have cadence steps, shorter, more powerful steps with elevation, which is a result of the lowering of the hindquarters. This should already be kind of going on. So I think that's part of this, if that makes sense. You should be able to already. Yeah,
I think, like we talk about, third level being the introduction of all of these things, mm-hmm. right? And then once you achieve that, then you have to to get to fourth level, you have to start at the beginning again and making sure everything's good, and everything, each step is being created. And then you can achieve fourth level. Then you go back to the beginning and, try and break it down and try and find the holes and trying to figure it out. And then, you're adding movements at the same time. So when you get into Prix St. George, fourth level Prix St. George, you're saying, okay, I want to be able to do a pirouette, which is kind of a small circle. Mm-hmm. Do I have every one of these steps within my pirouette? Do I have every one of these steps during my half pass? And if you don't, then you've got to, develop your half pass better by looking at what's missing and developing through that problem or past that problem. So, you go to the top and you come back down and you say, okay, do I have all this? And then you go to the top, it's not a fixed thing. Like, okay, I got rhythm, I got relaxation, and then I just, and then all of a sudden I'm a Grand Prix horse, or you've developed a Grand Prix horse. So, it's just like, these are the ingredients that you have to bring to all of your exercises, to all of the movements you want to show in a test. You've got to make sure all those ingredients are there and in the right proportion and all of those things. So it's a great guideline, but you're never done going back to looking at the beginning again or trying to find where the holes are.
Right. And, but every day, right, even if you're riding a Grand Prix horse, every day you have to put the ingredients back in the bowl. That makes sense, right, with that analogy, right? You have to do it every day. And you may be able to say, okay, rhythm, suppleness, and contact, I can get in 3 rounds of trot. Does that make sense? Like you have.
Yeah, but it's always got to be better.
It's always got to be better.
There's never, a 10 of relaxation combined with a 10 of rhythm. And a lot of times I find that, like, as I'm adding impulsion, the relaxation gets less, or the rhythm gets, problematic. And so you've got to say, okay, I'm not gonna be satisfied that I have a lot of impulsion, but I don't have relaxation. That doesn't work, right? And so a lot of times when you go back and read a test that you've gotten back from a judge, and you take a look at what they're saying, they'll give you the idea that you need more impulsion. That doesn't mean you need less rhythm or less relaxation. That's the trouble of this whole thing, is that you fix one thing and another problem will crop up. Mm-hmm. And so you need somebody on the ground, and you need the judges. They help us in training by telling us you don't have enough straightness. You don't have enough. So then you go home, you work on straightness, and then you go to next time you get the same score again because you didn't also improve your relaxation. That's what makes it so hard.
Well, and the other thing is when you start looking at not just that, but that when you look at the sides of the pyramid, on the left-hand side, physical development through progressive conditioning, and that's exactly what you're talking about, right? You're developing your horses as you go along through this conditioning ability, right? And then the right-hand side says increase throughness and obedience. And I will say, it's constant. You're constantly trying to increase throughness. You're constantly trying to increase obedience. So those are all things that you have to continually do. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just, that's why it's a sport. It doesn't just magically happen, or, your horse may be a little bit tight, and you have to go back and you've got to work on suppleness for the day. Or you may say, okay, it's Monday and I'm going to really work on general obedience, or I'm going to work on general throughness, right? Well, then you go back to working on, elasticity with freedom of anxiety. That's suppleness. So, it's a constant. That's why it's a living, breathing pyramid, right? The tool that we are constantly using, but it gives us an ability to sort of figure out, like, if your Grand Prix horse is stiff, where do you go? Or maybe they don't want to be have as much impulsion or have as much straightness. It gives you a place to go back and work with it. That's why it is what it is, kind of thing. But as always, Phil,
it's great to have the guideline there, right? To say, okay, here's the idea about it. But, as a rider, I'm constantly learning. Like, I thought, like, oh, this horse was really, really through last year. And then the next year, I'm like, that horse was not through at all.
Right.
Now he's more through, right? And then you go next year, you're like, no, that wasn't through at all. Like, I think that's really fun, is because you think that you had great connection and impulsion. And as you constantly learn and through different, with coaching, with watching videos, with, all this stuff, you're like always discovering how it can be better. And that's what, really like that.
It's true.
Never done training.
It's never done. Never done training. Exactly. Well, as always, everybody, we love your email and Facebook shout outs. And we encourage you to look at this pyramid of training online. It's everywhere. And USDF actually has a great poster that I have hanging in my arena. And actually, I'm going to need to get an updated poster. But it's a great thing to have in your arena or put somewhere in your tack trunk or somewhere where you're constantly looking at it. But as always, we love those emails and Facebook shout outs. Keep them coming. The United States Dressage Federation is your connection to dressage education, competition, and achievement. Visit USDF.org for more information. Again, that's www.usdf.org, the online destination for dressage. You can find our show notes and links to today's guests on our website, dressageradio.com. Like us on Facebook, just search Dressage Radio Show. Follow us on Twitter at Horse Radio. My website is maplecrestfarmky.com, and my email is reese@horseradionetwork.com.
The best way to find me is probably on Facebook, or my email is philip@horseradionetwork.com. I'd like to thank our sponsors for allowing us to put on a show. And don't forget to check out all the other shows on the Horse Radio Network at horseradionetwork.com.
As always, keep your heels down and your shoulders back, and we look forward to talking with you next week.